Let's ask our first guest and good friend, Dan Gainor, the Vice President of Business and Culture for the Media Research Center. Dan's been with the MRC for more than a decade. He's a veteran editor and makes several appearances on networks like Fox News, Fox Business, CNBC, and Newsmax Television. Dan, thanks for coming back and being on our show again.
Oh, it's a pleasure. This is fun stuff to talk about.
So I'm making the case today that the media, it has lots and lots of biases. Now I know you're with us today to tell our viewers that the media is essentially completely unbiased. Isn't that correct?
It should be, or at least largely. I mean, I think it's impossible to erase all biases. But if you look at the media where it is today, the result of more than a decade of social media, journalists have completely thrown out the concept of neutrality, something that they're the ones who basically pushed on us in the decades previous.
So you think this bias has actually gotten worse than in recent years, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, the origin of journalism, it used to have, cities would have 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 daily papers. A lot of them all had an opinion, but nobody was going around trying to pretend that they were neutral. Then we hit the post-war era, Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite and people, and the idea was journalism was supposed to be neutral. Now we know it wasn't, but they claimed it was, and so they sort of aspired to it, and they've thrown that all in the trash.
So what do you think has caused this, in your opinion? Is it just greed? I mean, what is it?
I mean, I think the number one cause is journalists have always been liberal. And when they didn't get a chance to expose that, when they cut down what they were doing in a given day, broadcast journalists might appear, a minute and a half in a segment. You're not getting a chance to say much. A print reporter might write an 800,000-word story, interview a bunch of people. There's not that many choices. But now, because of social media, a typical journalist might tweet 20 or 30 times in a day. That's a lot of content. They might appear on TV or radio. There's so many more opportunities for them to express their opinion. And they discovered the wrong thing, that the more they express their opinion, the more express their biases. The more likes and clicks and retweets they got on social media, the more popular they became within one niche and unpopular the other, and it was a self-reinforcing reality.
Interesting. Yeah, well, the internet has changed virtually everything you and I do. Stay with us, if you will, Dan. We need to take a commercial break. We'll be right back in a moment here on The Income Generation. I'm David Scranton, and we'll be right back. Now it's time to bring back our good friend, Dan Gainor, Vice President of Business and Culture for the Media Research Center. Dan, thanks for sticking around.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I love doing this.
I know you do. It's one of your favorite topics. That's why we love having you for it. So it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. You're right. The written word gives reporters and the like really more opportunity to express themselves. And then those liberal leanings end up coming out, whether on purpose or accidentally. Whereas you're right, a 1.5-minute television clip doesn't really give them much of a chance except to report the facts. Is that basically what you're saying in part?
Yeah, and there have been studies done where reporters, some analysis, the people they follow on Twitter are universally much more liberal than the rest of the public. So they don't follow that many conservatives on Twitter. They're hanging out with their friends. That's what they're doing.
Okay, so, that's fine for the average reporter and his or her bias, but we're talking a lot about the big Wall Street firms today and all those advertising dollars going to steer our baby boomers, to steer you and me in one direction or another. And sometimes they'll use different things. For example, we're going to play a clip in just a minute here from Bank of America, where they actually use optimism and they use empowerment to help people. Listen to this.
In
big ways and in small,
Bank of America is here to help you get things done. What would you like the power to do?
So Dan, tell me, what do you think? This commercial, when you're sitting here as a boomer yourself, do you find this commercial to be effective in motivating you as a member of the income generation?
I would say it motivates me. It makes me, kind of gets me going. I think it's a very upbeat sound. And for older listeners, older viewers, what they're hearing, they're not just hearing the William Tell Overture. They're hearing the Lone Ranger. And that makes you, heroes and good things. And maybe those who think that way might be hearing Bugs Bunny or something, but it's a classic tune, and the way they do it is sort of a silly, upbeat way. So I think it puts you in a good mood. I'm not sure if it really convinces me to hand over my money anymore.
Okay, so let's try this one here from Fidelity, where it's kind of a similar theme. I think this one is geared specifically toward boomers in the need for control. So listen to what Fidelity has to say.
Life isn't a straight line. Things happen. Then sometimes you can find yourself heading in a new direction. But at Fidelity, we help you prepare for the unexpected. With retirement planning and advice for what you need today and tomorrow. Because when you're with Fidelity, a partner who makes sure every step is clear, there's nothing to stop you from moving forward.
So this is obviously something that's more designed to empower the do-it-yourself investor. Give me your opinion on its effectiveness to a do-it-yourself investor.
It's much more targeted to people like myself. If you remember, just a few years ago, that was essentially the Brexit message in Britain. Take back control. And so it was geared, of course, toward middle class voters. It was geared toward people on the right who didn't trust the EU. This is for people who may not trust big Wall Street firms. Oh, well, we're not here to basically be the big Wall Street firm. We're here to give you the tools to take control. I think if they were trying to market to me, that would work. That's much more geared toward me.
And yes, you are the quintessential boomer. So 30 seconds, can you tell us how boomers have forced the hand of Wall Street to change the way they advertise?
Well, it's the same way every big boomlet generation. Boomers have tons of money. They're all retiring all at once. We're going to see this massive wave of people hitting retirement. And then it's going to need tons of help in the retirement space because it's all very complicated to do on your own.
Yeah, and they tend to be more do-it-yourselfers in the previous generation. So I think they elicit commercials like the Fidelity commercial we just heard. So if you could stay with us for one more segment, we'd love to have you back, play a couple more commercials and get your comments there. We'll be back here in a moment on the Income Generation. I'm Dave Scranton. I'm here with Dan Gainor. We'll see you in a minute. Now it's time to welcome back for one last segment our good friend, Dan Gainor. So Dan, we have two things I want to play in this particular segment here. One is a Raymond James ad that I'm sure you remember. It'd be interesting to get your feedback on this one. So let's go ahead and listen to that.
Kevin, meet your father.
Kevin.
Bye. Kevin.
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 Kevin. Kevin.
Kevin.
Kevin.
Kevin.
Kevin. Kevin.
Trusted advice for life.
Kevin, how's your mom?
Life well planned.
Now that one is obviously supposed to tug at your heartstrings. And Dan, I've known you long enough to know that you can be a little bit of a cold fish sometimes. So did it get your heartstrings? Tell us the truth.
Oh, I think absolutely. I think that tugs on your heartstrings. I think it's a very effective use, and very well done. I mean, it's a to have basically done almost one word throughout the entire ad, but it's the inflection that different people saying into the background, and you know what's going on. An entire human life played out in one commercial, and you can't hear that commercial without literally envisioning yourself going through those stages of life. I the ad company they hired to do that really had their act together.
Sure, yeah. I would absolutely agree with that in terms of the quality of a commercial. So, I guess the question really is, how much do you think that some of this stuff really affects people's decisions? Sometimes people just look at it, okay, it's great branding, and some things actually motivate people to take action. Which category do you think a lot of these commercials are in that we've been watching?
Well, I mean, I think they fall on different. I don't think that motivates me to take action. I think what that does is it plows the ground. It leaves me, susceptible to now the first time I'm going to see one of their ads that's not like that, where it might be linked toward, well, you've gone through your whole life and now you're ready to, you got to worry about your retirement. I think I would be very susceptible to that, where, I think that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to associate positive feelings. It's hard to just say, let me help you with retirement. Whereas I thought the other one that really said take back control, that hit me more as a basically take action now kind of act.
Okay, fair enough. I've got one more for you. I want to make sure we don't run out of time in this segment before we play this. This is from Ameriprise, of course. And Ameriprise, they're a huge firm. They try to appeal to the masses. So let's listen to one of their advertisements, and I'd like to get your feedback on that.
How well does your financial advisor know you? If they saw you on the street, would your advisor recognize you? At Ameriprise, we see you as more than a client. That's why our advisors care about what's important to you. They offer personalized advice to help you prepare for what's expected and even what's not, giving you the freedom to live financially confident. Because to us, you're more than just another face in the crowd. With the right financial advisor, life can be brilliant.
All right, nice commercial. Doesn't really strike me in any strong way. You?
Well, I mean, I think it self-edits real aggressively at the very beginning. Because if you don't have a financial advisor, you literally have turned off the commercial. And so, that puts people in a very narrow band where you're ignoring people. I think if you had some of the humanity of the previous commercial, where, because a lot of people might be doing their stocks on their own. You might be your own financial advisor, and they're not speaking to you at all there. So I think that was a little bit too abrupt of an entry. And like I said, if you're putting people into groups, you've immediately narrowed your group to a very finite one that may not listen to you.
Sure. Dan, we've got a little bit over a minute left, but I want to ask you how much you think this affects reporters, journalists, if they're listening to or watching a lot of these advertisements on whatever the medium is for which they work. Does it affect what they think is good or what they recommend in other types of media?
Of course they're impacted. We live in an advertising, fueled society. Journalists are constantly on media, watching TV, reading stuff on Twitter, reading in print. So if you've got advertising out there, believe me, they're watching it. And so if it's feel-good advertising, and some of this was, they're going to feel good about your company. So to some extent, I think companies need to be aware, and I think some of them are aware, that journalists who cover them also are recipients of their advertising. So that's why you'll see Snoopy in ads or whatever, because they're trying to tug the heartstrings of America and also American journalists.
And as you and I talked about on a previous show, we don't have time to get into today, but sometimes the advertisers for a particular medium affect what the journalists end up saying or having to say to play the corporate game. So Dan, thanks so much for being with us once again. Really appreciate you being here as usual.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
And you stay with us. We'll be right back here with more on the income generation.